8 Sexual Secrets Narcissists don't want you to know. Have you ever laid in bed, inches away from the person you loved, and felt a cold, hollow silence that screamed louder than any argument? You were physically close, yet you felt a profound, aching distance that made no sense. You kept waiting for that spark, that genuine connection you felt you deserved, but it never arrived. That specific, crushing loneliness was not your fault. It was the first sign that you were dealing with something hidden. You probably spent so many nights wondering why the most intimate moments left you feeling drained instead of fulfilled. You tried to convince yourself that you were the problem, or perhaps that you just weren't trying hard enough to make them happy. But deep down, your intuition was trying to scream a truth you weren't ready to hear. You were not crazy. You were starving for connection in a place where it simply could not exist. It felt like you were dancing a beautiful, elaborate routine where you were the only one who actually cared about the steps. They knew how to mirror your desires, how to play the part of a passionate partner, but it was all a carefully curated performance. You were being studied, not seen. Every time you felt like you were finally breaking through the walls to their heart, you hit a layer of impenetrable, cold glass. Think back to those early days when the physical intensity was explosive, almost dizzying. It felt like destiny, didn't it? That was the bait. They weren't expressing love, they were conducting a trial run to see exactly which buttons to push to control your nervous system. By learning what made you feel most seen, they were actually mapping out the vulnerabilities they would later use to keep you trapped in their web. You might have noticed a strange pattern where they became cold or distant the moment you felt vulnerable. It was as if your genuine openness made them deeply uncomfortable, or even resentful. That is because to them, your vulnerability was an invitation to control, not an invitation to bond. They didn't know how to handle real, raw emotion, so they punished you for giving it to them by withdrawing their attention. There was always this unspoken expectation that you had to be a certain way for them to remain interested. You found yourself performing, editing your natural self, and hiding your own needs just to keep the peace. You thought you were being accommodating, but you were actually being conditioned. You were slowly being trained to prioritize their ego, even in the most private moments of your entire life. You were never just a partner to them, you were an audience of one. They needed you to validate their self-image, and sex became the ultimate arena for that performance. If you ever felt like a prop in their personal movie, that is because, in their mind, that is exactly what you were. They were constantly checking their own reflection in your eyes, searching for the adoration they desperately needed to function. It is time to let go of the guilt you have carried for not being enough to satisfy them. No amount of love, physical passion, or patience on your part could have ever fixed their internal emptiness. You were trying to fill a bottomless pit with your own life force. That is not a failure on your part, it is a testament to your capacity to love, which they were simply incapable of ever truly reciprocating. You were not imagining the inconsistency. One day they were insatiable and attentive, the next they were distant, critical, or completely shut down. This was the push-pull cycle of their own insecurity. They used intimacy as a lever, pulling you close when they needed a boost of validation and pushing you away when they felt smothered or threatened by your power. It was never about you. It was always about their mood. Recognize that the confusion you felt was by design. They thrive in the gray areas, the places where you question your own reality and wonder if you just interpreted things wrong. By keeping you off balance, they ensured that you were always looking to them for the truth. But the truth was never in their words or their actions. It was in the fact that your spirit knew it was being diminished, even when your heart wouldn't let go. Let's talk about the first secret they never want you to know. Intimacy was always a test of compliance. For them, sex was not an act of union, it was a way to measure how much you would sacrifice for their approval. Every specific request or boundary they pushed was not about pleasure, but about seeing how easily you would fold your own values to please them. They were measuring their own power, one session at a time. The second secret is that they are fundamentally bored. This is a difficult truth to accept, but it is necessary for your healing. They are incapable of experiencing deep, slow-burning, comfortable love because it lacks the excitement of the chase. They were constantly looking for new ways to keep their own interest alive, often projecting that boredom onto you, making you feel as though you were the one who had become dull or unexciting. Third, they use sex to numb their own internal shame. They walk through the world carrying a massive, heavy weight of unacknowledged self-loathing. When they seek out intimacy, it is a frantic search for relief from that darkness. You were never just a lover to them, you were a drug, a distraction, a way to forget who they really were for a few precious minutes. When the high faded, they had to move on to the next fix. Fourth, they despise your genuine intimacy. This sounds contradictory, but it is the truth. True intimacy requires equality, vulnerability, and trust, all of which are fatal to their fragile ego. When you were at your most authentic, you held a mirror up to their emptiness. That is why they often became angry, detached, or cruel right after the most beautiful moments. They were terrified of being truly seen for what they were. Fifth, they are always watching themselves in the mirror of the experience. They aren't in the room with you, they are in their own head, narrating their own performance. They are judging how they look, how they sound, and how you are responding. You were essentially a captive audience member to a one-person show, forced to applaud the performance, or else risked being discarded for failing to play your assigned role. Sixth, they've used sex as a tool for punishment and reward. If you did something they disliked, intimacy was withheld, and you were left to wonder what you did wrong. If you obeyed, you were granted their presence. This is emotional conditioning, plain and simple. They trained you to associate their validation with your submission, effectively turning your own natural desire for connection into a mechanism of your own subjugation. Seventh, they are secretly obsessed with your past and your potential to leave. Their sexual behavior is often rooted in a pathological need to own your history. They want to know every detail, not because they care, but to compare, to compete, and to gain leverage. They want to be the best you have ever had, not out of love for you, but out of a desperate, competitive need to be superior to anyone else who has ever touched you. Eighth, they are not actually sexually confident, they are sexually hollow. All the bravado, the demands, and the expertise are a mask. Underneath, they are deeply insecure, terrified that if they stopped performing, you would realize there is nothing beneath the surface. They rely on your reactions to tell them who they are. Without your feedback, they would have no idea how to even begin to participate in a human relationship. You must understand that these 8 secrets are not about you. They are about the architecture of a disordered mind that cannot exist without an external source of energy. They did not target you because you were weak, they targeted you because you are capable of providing the kind of deep, rich, authentic energy that they are fundamentally unable to generate on their own. You were a light, and they were the moth. When you look back at the moments where you felt used, trust that feeling. That was your inner truth trying to protect you. They didn't want you to know these secrets because if you had realized the transaction was a sham, you would have left immediately. They kept you in the dark by filling your head with gaslighting and your heart with false promises, all to keep the supply flowing for as long as they possibly could. You thought you were in a relationship, but the plot twist is that you were actually in a script. Every romantic gesture, every passionate night, and every intimate conversation was a scene they had played out before and would play out again. You weren't a partner, you were the newest actor to step into a role that had been vacated by the person before you and would eventually be filled by the person who comes after. Here is the part that hurts, but also frees you: they never actually knew you. They knew the version of you that they created to suit their narrative. They knew how to provoke you, how to soothe you, and how to excite you, but they never knew your soul, your fears, or your true dreams. They were essentially dating a character they wrote, and you were just the person forced to read the lines, often without even knowing it. The most jarring realization is that they were often acting even when they were at their most tender. Have you ever noticed how they seemed to be checking the clock, or waiting for a specific reaction from you? That was the narcissist ensuring the scene was landing correctly. If you didn't react with the right level of adoration or gratitude, they would pivot, change the tone, or become cold to force the reaction they needed. You thought you were bonding, but they were scanning for weaknesses. When you let your guard down and shared your secrets, they weren't building intimacy. They were cataloging ammunition. The things you shared in the dark, the things you thought were safe, were being stored in the back of their minds for the moment they needed to shut you down, shame you, or gain the upper hand in a conflict. It was never about understanding. And here is where it gets truly disturbing. They were often projecting their own infidelities or desires onto you. When they accused you of not being satisfied, or of looking elsewhere, or of being cold, it was almost always a reflection of their own internal reality. They were accusing you of exactly what they were doing or thinking, using the intimacy between you as a smokescreen to hide their own lack of integrity. You thought you were helping them heal their past wounds with your love. The plot twist is that they don't want to be healed, they want to be fed. If they truly healed, they would lose their identity as a victim, and they would lose their excuse for their abusive behavior. They needed you to be the caretaker, the therapist, and the lover all at once, so they could stay frozen in their pattern of dysfunction. You thought they were complex and misunderstood. In reality, they are remarkably predictable. Once you peel back the layers of the performance, you see the same, repetitive patterns. The same arguments, the same phases of the relationship, the same cycles of abuse. They are not deep, mysterious, or tortured souls. They are individuals who have never learned how to grow, and they are terrified of doing the work to change. The ultimate revelation is that you were not the one who lost something, you were the one who had something stolen from you. They stole your time, your energy, and your belief in your own intuition. But they did not take your essence. They did not take your capacity for love. That is still yours, and now that the curtain has fallen and the script is burned, you finally have the space to reclaim what was always truly yours. They will never admit to this. They will never sit you down and explain that the entire relationship was a performance based on their need for validation. To do so would be to shatter their own carefully constructed facade. But you don't need their confession to find your truth. You have the wisdom of your own experience. You know what you felt, and that is more than enough proof of the reality of what occurred. Stop waiting for the aha moment where they finally see the truth and apologize. That moment will never come because they cannot afford to see the truth. They are living in a house of cards, and one admission of reality would bring it all crashing down. You have already seen behind the curtain. You don't need them to confirm it. Your eyes are open, and that awareness is the beginning of the rest of your life. Now, let's look at the consequences, not for you, but for them. It is easy to think they have moved on and are happy, but that is a fallacy. Their inability to form authentic, deep, and vulnerable connections is the ultimate prison. Every relationship they ever have will be a repeat of the same shallow, transactional performance. They are condemned to a lifetime of never being fully known and never truly knowing anyone. They are masters of the beginning, but they are doomed to fail at the endurance. Relationships, true ones, are built on the capacity to weather the boring, the difficult, and the mundane. The narcissist cannot tolerate the mundane because it forces them to confront their own emptiness. So, they will constantly search for a new partner, a new high, a new audience, always running from the quiet silence of their own company. Think about the isolation they must feel. Even when they are surrounded by admirers, they are deeply, profoundly alone because they have no true self to share with the world. They are constantly wearing a mask, and the weight of holding that mask in place for every person they meet is exhausting. They are never at rest. They are always performing, always watching, and always editing. That is a miserable way to exist. They have lost the ability to experience the richness of human intimacy. When they touch someone, they aren't feeling the human connection, they are feeling their own power, their own validation, or their own distraction. They are essentially starving at a banquet table. They have all the external trappings of a successful life, but they are nutritionally deficient in the one thing that actually matters, love. The people they win are never truly won. They are just the next set of props. Eventually, the new partner will start to see the cracks, the same way you did. The new partner will start to question the silence, the same way you did. The narcissist will repeat the cycle, hoping that this time, the person will fill the void. But the void is inside them. No amount of new partners will ever be enough to stop the hunger. They will spend their lives in a state of constant, low-level panic. Fear of being exposed, fear of being abandoned, fear of being bored. This is not the life of a winner. This is the life of someone who is permanently stuck in a survival loop. They may look powerful, successful, or charming, but inside, they are just a frightened child, desperately trying to keep the facade of adulthood from crumbling apart. They are also haunted by the memories of the people they discarded. They don't look back with nostalgia, but with a lingering sense of failure. They know, on some level, that you saw them. They know that you saw behind the mask, even if you never said it out loud. That haunts them. Your ability to see through them, to walk away, and to heal, is a reminder of their own impotence. They hate you for your strength. They will never experience the peace that you are moving toward. True peace comes from integration, the ability to hold both our light and our shadow, and to accept ourselves. They are too busy denying their shadow to ever integrate it. They are perpetually split, projecting their darkness onto others while clinging to a fragile, fake light. They will never know the stillness of a mind that has nothing to hide. The justice you seek is already happening. Every day they spend lying, manipulating, and performing is a day they waste. They are aging without evolving. They are accumulating years, but they are not accumulating wisdom. They are essentially wasting the gift of their own life. You are moving forward, learning, growing, and becoming more authentic. They are staying exactly the same, trapped in their own ego, forever. Don't waste your energy feeling sorry for them, but do acknowledge the hollowness. It isn't the life you would ever want. It is a life of superficiality, anxiety, and ultimate meaninglessness. They are the protagonist in a play that no one is watching, and they are so desperate for applause that they have forgotten how to actually live the story. You have been liberated from that script. They are the ones who are still trapped. This is the moment you start to take your life back. Reclaiming your sovereignty begins with the body. That body, which you allowed them to treat as a prop, is the vessel of your own power. Start by honoring it again. Listen to what it needs, not what a partner demands. Reconnect with the sensations that are yours alone, without the intrusion of someone else's expectations or judgment. You are finally your own master. Self-trust is your greatest weapon. That voice you ignored, the one that told you something was wrong, that told you to run, that warned you about their behavior, that voice is your compass. Stop doubting it. Every time you listen to their gaslighting instead of your own intuition, you betrayed yourself. From this day forward, make a promise. Your intuition is the only expert you will ever need. Trust it implicitly. You are not damaged goods. That is a narrative they fed you to keep you feeling small and dependent. You are a survivor who has been through an intense psychological fire and emerged with wisdom, resilience, and a deeper understanding of human nature. You have a superpower now. You can smell the lack of integrity from a mile away. You will never be blinded by the same illusions again. That is not damage, that is an upgrade. Practice the art of boundary setting, not as a punishment to others, but as an act of love for yourself. A boundary is not a wall to keep people out, it is a gate to keep your peace safe. When you define what you will and will not accept, you are telling the world, and yourself, that you have value. You are declaring that you are not a product to be consumed, but a person to be cherished. Focus on the joy of being truly seen. You deserve to be with someone who doesn't look at you as a prop, but as a partner. You deserve to be with someone who loves your vulnerability, respects your boundaries, and wants to know the real you, not the version of you that serves their ego. That kind of love is out there, but you can only find it when you are fully comfortable being your authentic, unfiltered self. Remember that the pain you felt was the birth of your own clarity. If you had never gone through this, you might have spent your life wondering if you were missing out on something. Now you know. You have been to the other side, and you have seen that there is nothing there but shadows. You have been gifted with the knowledge that genuine love is built on character, not performance. That is an invaluable gift. Spend time in the silence, not with fear, but with gratitude. Enjoy the fact that you don't have to perform. You don't have to be on. You don't have to be perfect, or sexy, or accommodating to keep someone from discarding you. You can just be. You can be messy, you can be tired, you can be boring, and you are still worthy of love. That freedom is the most intoxicating, beautiful feeling in the world. Empower yourself by realizing that you have the capacity to create your own life, your own joy, and your own purpose. You were never dependent on them for those things, you were just tricked into believing you were. You are the author of your own story now. You get to decide what the next chapter looks like. You get to decide who enters your space and who stays. You are the architect of your own happiness. Look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the hero of this story. You fought a battle in the dark, against an enemy who knew your weaknesses and used them against you. You were confused, you were hurt, and you were manipulated, yet here you are, reading this, healing, and moving forward. You didn't just survive, you awakened. You are not who you were before, and that is exactly how it should be. The greatest punishment for a narcissist is watching the person they tried to break finally become impossible to control. Your healing is not just a personal victory, it is a quiet, powerful defiance of everything they stand for. By becoming whole, you render their entire strategy obsolete. They spend years trying to make you their reflection, but in the end, they only succeeded in teaching you how to become your own masterpiece.